Welcome back to Veterans Forum, a program by veterans, about veterans, for veterans and their families. I'm your co-host, Bob West, with Ray Chattery and Jerry Devlin. Our goal is to provide important information on legislation, benefits, support, and activities to you and your family by interviewing leaders in our community. Jerry, who do we have with us today?
We're very happy tonight to have with us Senator Doug Peters. Doug, of course, is a native Marylander born in Silver Spring, and he has 2 degrees from 2 great schools, the University of Maryland and the University of Baltimore, as I do. And despite that, he's done very well in business, served in the Bowie City Council, moved to the County Council, then moved to the State Senate. In the State Senate, he's now the Democratic Majority Leader in the Senate and is a member of the most important committee, Budget and Taxation. And he has built a reputation in Annapolis as being the veterans legislator. He is himself a veteran and was commander of 2 of the 4 veterans posts here in Maryland, the VFW and in the American Legion. And he earned a Bronze Star in Operation Desert Storm. So we're very happy tonight to introduce to our audience Senator Doug Peters.
Welcome back, Senator Peters.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the intro.
So what do we expect to happen in Annapolis this coming year?
Well, as you know, we have an election coming up. I hate to date the show, but you know, we're in the throes of it now. So November 7th, we will have either our existing governor, Governor Hogan, or we'll have a new governor, Governor Jealous. And you know, I think that's going to dictate the agenda for the next 4 years. I don't think it's going to stray much from the veterans. I mean, it's always been bipartisan for all veterans issues. So, you know, I think we're going to stick to our issues that we think are important to veterans. And, you know, I wanted to say a couple things, if you don't mind, since, you know.
You have the floor.
Since I have the floor. I guess I do have the floor.
Yes, you do.
Yield me your time, right?
That's right.
Okay. Is that I know that this is one of the last shows you're going to be doing, and I just want to thank the 3 of you for everything you do, not just in the studio, but you know, we've made it a culture here in the city of Bowie to attend Memorial Day Parade, the Memorial Day services, the veteran services. You're all there, you're all present, and it's really important, particularly for our young people. You know, when you see the Cub Scouts out there, and you see the Boys and Girls Club and all those groups that present wreaths, you're passing on that tradition that's important to our community. And so I thank you for doing the show, you know, and you took the baton from Marv Hout, from Jim Pritchard, from Walt Jones, who sat in these different seats, and you've carried that on. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that there was a lot of people out there that, you know, there's a lot of hard work that's done behind the scenes, and you're the guys that do it. You're the go-to people, and I can't tell you how many people you've helped with service issues, VA issues, just because they see you as the veterans in the Bowie, so just thank you for that.
Well, the number of people that write in constantly about our ratings here on the show, you know, keep going up. I think we're up to double digits now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, anything is possible.
Family and friends.
That's true. We can start with some veterans issues that might have lingered from last legislative session that you think might be coming up again.
Well, we are very blessed to have Charlotte Hall. I know a number of you have been involved in Charlotte Hall. It's a model, not just for the state of Maryland, but for the United States. So there's a push to try to get a second Charlotte Hall. The issue is that they're just not sure where. There's been different sites identified. There's been a task force put together. They want to make it a regional. You know, obviously it's I think technically it's in St. Mary's, as I understand it. But you know, they want to make it in Baltimore County. They've talked about Anne Arundel County, different areas at the Crownsville site. But we haven't gotten there yet. But I think that of all the calls I get from constituents, that's probably the most prevalent call, is that they have a veteran who needs assisted living. And when they heard about Charlotte Hall, they heard nothing but good things about it. And if you've been there, which you have, they have your rank on the door, they got your branch of service on the door. It feels like you're going back and, right into the barracks, There's a camaraderie there. And so that's going to be a big issue, and siting it, figuring out how much the planning and design is, and then ultimately building it. But it has proven to be a great model for the state of Maryland.
And for the nation, really.
Yeah.
And because it's approaching 90+%
Yes.
occupancy.
It's
And
92 according to Glenn.
right. And what a lot of people aren't aware of is the number of women veterans
Yes.
that are there. I mean, the numbers obviously are small, but they're growing, and also the fact that your spouse is able to stay there also. So these are additional benefits that are available to veterans. But like you said, the whole idea is getting in planning to get the next facility up and running somewhere.
Now, it was told that adjoining veterans that Rosewood up near Owings Mills was a very, very top of the list site. How is that going, Doug?
I haven't actually been engaged in that task
Okay.
force at all. When it comes, it will come to budget and tax because it'll come through capital, and we'll do some planning and designing. But that was definitely one of the front runners.
We're also told that there's some expansion at some of the veteran cemeteries too. They're trying to make some expansion, maybe acquisition of land because of the growing numbers of veterans, especially the World War II guys are just about passed through in Korea and now, Vietnam.
Yeah, I think they're making a push for, the crematory. They have that, I know, at Cheltenham, and they're going to expand that. The vaults that they build there, obviously it takes up a lot less room, and a lot more people are getting cremated. And so that was a push, I think, in the last budget to expand those crematory vaults.
Yeah, I thought of cremation myself, but I was wondering how I can get that credit card and my checkbook in there too with me, just in case, you have to be prepared. What about, we often talk about veterans legislation as it pertains to retired veterans. Now, last year we had another $5,000 added. Is that, depending on how the budget looks, I guess, is going to be the determinant?
Yeah, well, what's really helpful there is, and Jerry knows this, is that when you do a bill and becomes a law, the following year, let's just say we add another 5,000 to take it from 15 where it is now to 20, you'll get a fiscal note on the previous bill. So you really know how much money it actually did cost to run that law through. So you won't know unless you put a bill in. So I'll do a bill to add another 5, which I did before, and that will give me a note on how much it really did cost, because you'll get projections on the bill until it's passed, and then if it turns out it was $2 million more than really it was, it'll be an easier sell to get to 20,000. I know that the bill that we did to take it from 10 to 15 was something like $2.5 million. And then I did it the next year, and it was $1.5 million. So if you kind of wait and make sure they crunch the numbers on actual people that took advantage of, the tax credit, then you can find out. Maybe it'll be a little easier to get to 20, which is where I think we need to be.
Now, that first 5,000 was for all retired.
Right.
But the second 5,000 was 65 or older.
Right.
Right, and then this one that just passed is 65 and older also.
Right.
Now, is there any indication of going below that? I mean, to include more veterans?
Well,
Then the fiscal note gets very high.
Yeah. There's two things going on. First, what Jerry said, the fiscal note will be very high, and it gets to a certain point where people won't pass it. I mean, that's just how it works. But the second is that we tried to true it up with the firefighters and first responders, okay? They came in a couple years ago and said, we want, the same. We want 55 is what they asked for, and $15,000. And we were like, well, we're at 10 with the veterans now. What we really need to go is to 15. And they waited patiently, and then we did theirs passed, and then we did the veterans. So now we're all at 15,000, and
you also did
I lowered it to 55.
retired law enforcement
We went to
people.
55.
You had retired law
for everybody.
enforcement, you passed that.
Yeah, so yeah, it went from 65 to 55. I hope I'm.
Well, we'll find out.
You better check.
Yeah.
Your viewers are going to check me. But I think we put everybody at 55, so we lowered it from 65 to 55 across the board.
I think the age did go down.
Right, and the reason that was, actually the first responders were very adamant that the firefighters, they don't live as long because they take all this smoke inhalation and they're in hazardous situations, and they're the ones that really convinced the committee to lower it to 55. So the veterans really owe a debt to them that they got that down to 55 as well to make it all. We just wanted parity with the first responders and the vets.
Yeah, we're waiting to see when the new tax forms come out, because that was passed last year, so
Okay.
it won't come out until we get the new tax forms and actually see what the legislation says.
And the Ways and Means Committee had always been the obstacle for years. Doug's bill used to pass the Senate every year unanimously, 47 to nothing, and then it would go to sleep in the Ways and Means Committee, and perhaps because it was election year. So I suppose this is a pretty good argument for having elections every year.
Absolutely.
One thing I want to do before we run out of time is Senator Peters was very instrumental. Of course, Bob, you brought it up first, to get our electronic sign out in front of the DAV. That sign has done so well for us, especially our service officer program. Like tonight, the service officers are there from 6 until 9. They had to extend an additional hour. Of course, they do individual appointments. But with that sign, and we have the hall rental, but the sign there, people will read that, and of course, you can't read it all at one time, but as they go by, and most of the people use 197 a lot, they get to see where our meetings were and the service officers and such. And as I say, we really appreciate you in the 23rd District for giving us, for paying for probably 85% of the sign.
A good portion of it, but
Yeah.
The membership of the DAV has gone up.
Right.
They get noticed about the rental of the hall. So financially, it's been a big boon for the
Bonanza.
DAV.
Wow.
Well, we probably wouldn't be in business without Doug on our gaming facilities and specifically the new slot machine that
Right.
Ray and I can remember when we almost couldn't meet the bills every month at the DAV, that one time the utility bill was paid by the auxiliary.
Yeah.
And now we get pressure from national, which we respond to, from national DAV asking us, what are you going to do with the money? And so we've been very generous to
different kind of
veterans
issue.
causes around the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you have to be noticed, because for years at Allen Pond, we'd have our tent up, and they'd say, well, where are you located? And we'd say, it's the white building on 197. They'd say, where is it?
Yeah.
So that's when I said, we need
Yeah, it
more presence up
reinforces pictures like that.
there. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
the beauty
So
of
we are
that
grateful.
was that we put it all under the tent of the Lottery Commission. So there was no need to do all this bookkeeping, which, you have volunteers come into the posts, and
Right.
they're not accountants, trained accountants like you are. So then you have issues, and then you have, audits, and it just made it so clean. And then 10% of that goes to the Veterans Trust Fund,
Right.
which goes to help get blankets or homeless vets or electric bills or all these things that it's hard, that fall through the cracks. So that it was a winner all the way around. So.
Well, Secretary Owen said the last time he was here that fund was really growing, and they were looking for qualified uses, for that money. So yeah, it's been a winner all the way around.
Yeah.
Besides the retirement, is there anything else that may be coming up as far as veterans are concerned? I know some people are talking about property taxes. If you're 100% disabled,
Yeah.
you
You
don't
get
pay
that now.
property taxes, and
So lower, didn't they lower it this year?
Well, I think Prince George's is 100%.
Yeah.
But the county has to agree to that piece of legislation, which makes it tough. So you do have some counties that are all different percentages, 80%, 50%, because, they definitely qualify you as a certain percentage of disabled, So people have come to me and said, why can't we get it 50% disabled and have it scaled down? Well, the county has to say it's okay. If the county doesn't say it's okay, the bill's not going anywhere.
Yeah, because the money goes to the county.
The county gets the property taxes, correct.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have the most veterans in the state of Maryland, in Prince George's. My advice would be maybe to start lobbying the new county executive, Angela Alsobrooks, and say, let's go to 80% or 50%.
You think she's going to win in November?
I think she has a pretty good chance.
You think? Okay. You never know.
Mark Twain would say, like a Christian holding 4 aces.
Well, you never know. You know.
Yeah, that's true. That's
There
true.
are surprises.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't see one over the horizon.
I don't see that.
Yeah. So it usually comes to money, you know, as most of these bills do.
Right.
Is there anything that you can kind of see that generally for older Marylanders that you might see as some legislation that might be occurring
Well,
that might not
you know,
have passed last year?
I always tell people it's a challenge when people are bracketed in different categories. I mean, you're a paying constituent, you pay your taxes, and then are you in the veterans box? Are you in the seniors box? Are you in the, you know, so we try to help everybody we can. I know that the senior agenda, the NARFE agenda, has always been a long-term care, making that a tax credit on that long-term care. That would obviously help a lot of veterans. So there's a lot of crossover there. I think that's an important issue that we need to pursue.
And many people think it's like Congress. They can just pass a law. Maryland, 49 of the 50 states, including Maryland, have balanced budget requirements in their constitution. So unless you have a year with a surplus, if you cut someone's taxes, you're going to have to increase someone else's. Like, don't tax you, don't tax me, tax that fella behind the tree.
And Prince George's has the Veterans Court. Is any other counties put in for that, or how's that
Yeah, there's
working?
actually, you know, that was legislation that I was able to put in to create a task force, come up with a recommendation. You were on that task force. You came down and testified, as you always do, and helping the veterans. And we got the Court of Appeals judge to put down the paperwork, to accept the paperwork from the Prince George's County Circuit Court, and they worked together, and we got it. So ours is at the Circuit Court. I think most of them are at the District Court.
Yeah, I think it would be better if ours were
it.
at the District Court, but the politics of the thing was that Sheila Tillerson Adams was very pro-veteran, and she really wanted it. In fact, so we were probably the first ones to have it.
Yeah.
And the District Court administration weren't keen on it. You know?
And so I think some of them don't have Veterans Court, but they have dockets.
Yeah.
And I think Judge Jerry can talk a little bit more about the difference. I think Baltimore City has a docket. You know, it's still seeing veterans and having veterans issues, but why don't you?
Because most of the things where veterans are involved in the criminal side, they involve misdemeanors. They're battery or drunkenness or something, you know. I mean, you really can't have a veterans court for murderers and rapists, you know. So it's sort of awkward having it in the circuit court, you know. We are losing a very good friend of, we have lost. Judge Phil Nichols has retired, and of course he was a retired captain in the Navy, and he has a ceremony every year in the Courthouse for Veterans, and he's always been a strong supporter, you know. We had him on the show one time. We had, Phil and I was, my two
That's what you were
colleagues
talking
here.
about. That's when you were talking about the Veterans Court at that time.
Yeah.
How's the Veterans Caucus doing down in Annapolis?
Well, I think we're shrinking. I mean, at least on the Senate side. We lost a couple of senators, Astle, Curry. We lost DeGrange. We lost Middleton. So I think we had 11. So we might be down to only 7 now. And you know what's
do
interesting?
you permit non-veterans to belong?
Sure, we do. I'm sorry, you're right. I mean, we've lost veterans on the Veterans Caucus, but everybody, in particular, you know, some of the other senators who did not serve are even more passionate than the veterans are. But as far as our actual veterans numbers, yeah, we're going from about 11 to 7, and a lot of that has to do with, and it's kind of interesting, most of them were drafted. I think there's only 2 or 3 of us that actually volunteered. So these were all draftees, you know, who went in and served. And I think there's only 2 or 3 of us that actually volunteered.
Now, in the House of Delegates, I think there's only one female veteran that's in the House of Delegates. Is it? In fact, in Annapolis, there's only one female holding office.
Wow. Yeah.
And
When I was in the House of Delegates, 70+% of the male members of the House
Yep.
were veterans, and
There's
now
the
it's probably
difference.
20%.
Yeah.
if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Same with Congress.
Well, Congress this time, there's an incredible number of veterans running in the general election. Both parties have put a lot of veterans up.
And a number of women veterans.
That's what I
too.
mean.
Yeah.
You have like
Yeah.
Congresswoman McSally is running in Arizona. No, just any number, you know. But the House, they're all over the place.
Now, in the state, Doug, there's about 5 or 6 county veterans commissions. Is that pretty much stagnant now, or are anybody else putting in, or?
Well, when I was on the county council, I was part of the legislation to create the Veterans Commission with Tony Knotts, who was in the military. And so we were one of the first to do that. I don't know, I haven't checked in with them lately.
Because I know Montgomery County, Anne Arundel County, and I think there's one other county on Eastern Shore that I know of. But I think there's about 5 or 6 that we have now. And I just didn't know how
Yeah.
how active
They
were.
kind of
in
report to the
Annapolis.
county and then they roll it up to the state, I guess, for the issues that they want.
Yeah, and next month when we have George Owens here, then
Yeah.
we'll get more information, on those kinds of specifics. Do you see any other changes, or do you anticipate any changes after this election as far as Annapolis is concerned? You mentioned a few senators are no longer part of the.
Well, the whole leadership is going to be different.
Yeah.
You've had defeated, you had the President pro tem of the Senate was defeated, and I think 2 committee chairs.
Correct. And 1 retired.
Yeah.
So we only have 4 committees in the Senate. So we've lost 3 of our chairs. 1 retired, 2 lost in elections, and our President pro tem lost in elections. So, I'm a senior person there now, believe it or not. I'm the 5th most senior person in the Senate, and I've only been there 12 years. So, my whole goal was to become capital budget chair. I'm the vice chair right now. And I think, if President Miller is
I think that looks good.
Supportive, I would love to do that. Because again, we talked at the beginning of the show about Charlotte Hall. Those are the kind of things I like. I like to deal with capital projects and across the state.
But the years go by. Our Congressman Steny Hoyer now is the longest serving Democrat in the U.S. House. Don Young of
amazing.
Alaska is the longest serving Republican. Yeah, Steny came in 1981. We were part of a group called the Diaper Dems in those days. We're a little bit out of diapers now.
And heading quickly back.
No comment from me on that.
There's Veteran Cemetery and the rest homes. They become very, very important.
The other thing that I found kind of interesting is, we hear about infrastructure, across the country. It seems in Maryland they're replacing every bridge that I have seen. Is that part of the capital
Yes.
budget that you would be involved in doing?
Oh, yeah. Now, we
Okay.
got on that early. We were
Yeah.
early on that because of what happened at the Bay Bridge. If you remember, that truck went over the side.
Right.
And that triggered us to go after every bridge and look at all the infrastructure. So we got on that earlier than the rest of the nation. And so I'm very confident that our bridges are in a lot better shape
How
than
about
other
the
states.
Harry Nice Bridge?
Well, the Harry Nice
a
Bridge
dangerous-
was actually renamed to Harry Nice and Mac Middleton Bridge before we left session.
Oh.
And then, unfortunately, Mac lost his election,
Oh.
which was, I think that was the most stunning
That's
one
a surprise.
of all. He was just such a great person and would bring you in and would mentor you. And he it was a big loss for the Senate.
Yeah, the people were talking about
Big
him
loss.
as a successor to Mike Miller.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he was universally respected. But
I mean, he just didn't run a good campaign, or
I don't know. I wasn't running my own, but he,
Right.
he was our only farmer. Everybody came to him for farm issues.
And he's a rural guy,
insurance
and the
issues, yeah.
county had become suburban.
And he was a veteran. He was one of the veterans that you know that we lost.
Is there a study going on with the replacement of the Nice Bridge, or?
Well,
That's part of Virginia.
as I
too, isn't it?
recall, the money from the Bay Bridge was set aside to fund the Nice Bridge.
Oh,
And I don't know, I don't think there's a toll on the Nice Bridge, is there?
yes.
Yeah, that money also was to pay for the bridge, and I think that money got cut,
Oh.
as well as the Bay Bridge money. So there was a lot of debate about the Nice Bridge, and so yeah, I thought we passed something again.
I think there was a study to be done or something.
We definitely, Mac took that, Senator
Because the bridge is just too
Middleton
narrow.
was his piece of legislation, and I believe he put that forward to make sure that was.
It goes, for our viewers, it goes over the Potomac.
Yeah.
And many people don't know, they think the boundary is the midpoint of the Potomac. Potomac is all in Maryland,
Right.
none in Virginia.
Yeah, well, we should charge Virginia for some water or something.
Well, yeah.
Give them a little toll or
That
something
was
like that.
before Virginia had slot machines. Down at Colonial Beach, the most profitable slot machines in Maryland were actually in Virginia, because there were piers that went out into the Potomac, and Billy O'Brien was a delegate from Virginia, was a friend of mine. He says, just kills me. He says, 99% of the people putting money in that are from Virginia, and 100% of it goes to Maryland.
Well, that's the way it goes. Well, it's kind of hard to believe, but our show is coming to an end. We want to thank Senator Peters for once again being our guest, and we want to thank you for watching Veterans Forum. Now we ask you to get involved by stopping by one of the veterans organizations, the DAV on Route 197, or the American Legion on Laurel Bowie Road. Find out about the legislation, benefits, and programs that you have earned. We encourage family members to stop by too and see what's available to them. And don't forget, if you need assistance, the DAV on Monday nights, there's a service officer there from 7 to 9.
6 to 9.
6 to 9. So there's a lot of available support to you and your family. And thank you once again for watching Veterans Forum.
Thanks, Stacy.
And thanks, Stacy, for being the director.